So, just a little update from what I was talking about telepathy a couple weeks ago. I've recently discovered that there's also a second form of telepathy that a lot of people might not really necessarily know about. And that's the ability to time travel information. And it's a little complicated, but I guess I understand it well enough that I can explain it to you. So basically, what it is when you're connected with a certain person or you're focusing on a certain person and you see them in like a video that's been like published like weeks and weeks and weeks ago, you it's complicated. You can basically talk to them from the point in time that you're at to the point in time that they're at, if you're connected with this person well enough. It's basically works like this. If you're focusing on a person and they're doing a video at a certain point in time, you can actually talk to them at that certain point in time. If you're focusing on them, if like they're right in front of your face and you can see them clearly, you can time travel, quote unquote, information back to them so they can better help you or give you better understanding of what you're trying to do. And it's not necessarily just that I wanted to talk about. There's like a couple things I wanted to talk about right now. So it's not just the telepathy thing where you're like communicating your ideas back to the past. It's also so in the videos I'm watching, they call it discernment. They these people who know these things, they call it hearing the voice of God, right? They know how to hear the voice of God, or they know how to hear the voice of other people and things like that, and they can give you information based off of what you give them, but not necessarily everybody knows that they're giving you information based off of what they know. It goes back to what I know about the Akashic records. In the Akashic records, what I taught you about the Akashic records is you can basically, if you tune in enough to what people are saying, you can hear beneath what they're saying. And what do I mean by that? In the Bible, I guess, they say Jesus spoke in parables, right? Jesus spoke in parables. People are basically always speaking in parables. And they don't necessarily have to hear your voice in order to speak in these parables, and they don't necessarily have to know how to speak in these parables, but it's just something that everybody does. They're tapping in to a deeper understanding of the universe, right? These people, like your loved ones or whoever you're talking to, they're tapping into this, I guess, Holy Spirit, you might call it, or the deeper intuition. It's not necessarily that they know what they're talking about. Sometimes they're just getting downloads from what you're saying to them in your head or what you're saying to them out loud, and they speak appropriately to answer your questions. It's like there's this all-seeing, all-knowing Holy Spirit that can talk to you. If you that's like the most basic human way of understanding it. But a better way of understanding it is that people are in tune to the Akashic records. And sometimes when they speak from the Akashic records depending on how in tune with them they are. And they can tell you things about what you need at a certain time based off of how tapped into these Akashic records they are. And when they speak the knowledge, they speak in parables. Like, for example, Jesus used to speak in parables about, like, ways of living and ways of doing things, and everybody hung on his hung on his word for every problem that they might have. And Jesus could be speaking to a lot of people, you know? Jesus could be speaking to this person, and this person. And depending on your interpretation of what he's saying, he could literally tell you the secrets of the universe, or whatever is like best for it. And in the Bible, they describe this as the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit literally entering people and talking to them. And when you ask if you can hear the language of God, you can ask him to help you. You can ask him to say things to you that you would not ordinarily hear. You can, like, if you're struggling with this key stuff, you can ask the Holy Spirit to speak to you about what you're missing in the current moment, and he will speak to you, and to the best of his abilities, he will tell you what to do next, or what to do just in general. So it's kind of like it's like two things at the same time. It's like telepathy, where you can talk to the person and they'll answer you back based off of what they hear. And it's also like some people don't necessarily know what they're saying at the current moment. Like they could be like speaking to you about something that they have no idea about, but they'll have an answer for you based off of what your inquiries are, your questions are, what you most desire to know in that moment. The Holy Spirit will come up and he'll tell you what you need to know if you're tapped into the Akashic records enough. And it's not necessarily that these people are hearing you. There are ways to do that. I was literally talking about that in the last video. But it's not necessarily that these people even hear you. It's that their intuition tells them to tell you what you need at a certain time. And if you get good enough at listening to what they're saying, this parable language, I guess you could say, you can extract information from it that pertains to, mostly it's like stuff like about, I don't know if I want to say that. It's like stuff about advancing humanity, like advancing the person that you are. Like if you need to know about becoming stronger, it'll tell you how to get stronger. If you need to know about different certain little things, like if you want to become smarter, it'll tell you how to become smarter. If you want to know about like what your boyfriend really thinks about you, it'll tell you what your boyfriend really thinks about you. It's all dependent on what you're thinking in the moment. It's all about being in tune with hearing the voice of it's definitely somebody talking to you, because I've literally had conversations with this person, but it's not in the way that you would typically talk to somebody. It's in a way that it's for a lot of people, I guess, it's literally like God is talking to them. Like they can hear that God is talking to them, and they can hear through these certain people at certain times that what they want to know at the time. Like it's like a magic genie that's there to grant all your wishes, and it just increases your knowledge about how to do things. Like depending on what it is you want to do, or who you want to talk to, or what you're trying to do with your life, it's very odd. It's very odd. It's a sensation that I've been dealing with for a long time, but for a long time I couldn't put it into words, but somebody recently helped me put it into words. She was like, yeah, not everybody knows that they're doing this. They're talking in this language. I guess you could call it the language of the gods, talking in tongues or something like that. And you can extract information from the Akashic records from it, because not everybody knows that they're doing it. Like, even right now, I'm like flat out telling you about all this stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my message is going to hit you the same way that it's going to hit somebody else. I might be talking about something completely different to somebody else. I might be a prophet who's like talking about what's going to happen next in your life, you know? It took me a long time to understand this. I basically had to sit back and listen to millions and millions of different people, not like literally millions, but I was listening to like hundreds of people just like talking and talking and talking, and eventually I came to understand that there was this undertone that they might not even be aware of, this undertone of I guess I would say, like, deeper inner, like, I guess the best way I can explain it is that the universe is trying to talk to you. Like, I don't know. The universe is trying to speak out through you. And through what you speak, you can literally understand the nature of how the universe works, of how all this works. And I've met a lot of people who have this talent. They are very in tune with the Akashic records, and they're literally, without knowing it, they're predicting what I'm going to say next before I'm going to say it. And I guess a lot of people told me that I have this ability, that I had this ability to say what I thought was going to come next before it actually happened. So I guess they've interpreted, based off of what I told them about it, they've interpreted the language of basically the gods. And you can literally talk about anything, and it'll be what you want to hear next. It'll be like instructions from the higher up, or like angels, or the Holy Spirit, or God. There'll be instructions on how to progress your life next, if you can learn to interpret what these people are saying. And it takes a lot of practice. I won't say I never knew. Like, at some point I figured it out, but I have done a lot of studying on the basics of human psychology and what they're trying to say when they're trying to say it. And what I found is like this subconscious layer, right? We're humans, but we all have this subconscious layer of what we know on the inside of our heads, and based off of what we know, we say different things. You know, it's like it's not necessarily just an emotional thing. It is an emotional thing because, like, depending on where you are in the spectrum, if you're always in fear, you're going to say things that fear would say. Like these, I don't know if I would go as far as to call them, like, the emotional gods or anything like that, or angels or anything like that, but I would definitely say that depending on where you are in the emotional spectrum, you're going to say different things to different people. And based off of what I've learned from someone who knew what they were talking about, they like studied the word and they've come to this and this and this conclusion. I can definitely say that this is a phenomenon that goes on with like basically all people, but depending on how tapped in to the spirit you are, depending on how tapped into all of humanity you are, you're going to be on a different level than other people, and you're going to say things that like resonate with them. And sometimes you're just resonating with one person, sometimes you're resonating with like a lot of people, but it's this language of parable that people are not necessarily all tapped into, that they don't understand. But if you dig beneath the surface, you can definitely get into this language more. You can understand more, and you can say more, and you can... It's crazy. It's something that I never really considered. I considered it at first when I first started seeing all this stuff happening around me. Like, I guess my best example of this experience is right after I woke up from my mental breakdown. I had this mental breakdown on Friday the 13th in like 2006, 2007. It's been 5 years. It's probably like 2007 or 2008. I had this mental breakdown once upon a time, and I woke up from it. Well, it wasn't a mental breakdown, but I'm going to call it a mental breakdown. I had this enlightenment, I guess you would say, where things just, when I woke up, it was all different. I can hear these voices talking to me. I could see things on TV that pertained to what I was going through at the time. It was like all these different factors of all these different things, and it was so intricate and complicated. You can only come to the conclusion that it's not like a world conspiracy. It's something that you're hearing beyond the surface. It's something you're hearing from the collective subconscious of all the people around you. And the reason I use the word collective consciousness and not like just consciousness or subconscious, collective subconscious and not just the subconscious, is because there are so many people in the world, and for them to be this organized is just a fallacy of thought. Like, I've been on this, almost like this railroad. I've been on this track. I've been on this roller coaster of people's thoughts and intentions, and they've all been leading me to certain conclusions. And all I can think from it is that not everybody is conscious of these conclusions. Some people are unconscious of it, and they'll like just say what they want to say at the time they want to say it. It's very easy to come to the conclusion that people are just reading your mind and that they're just talking to you in a certain way. But what I've come to the conclusion of, just from what I can hear, is that most people aren't even like conscious of what they're saying. Right? Most people aren't even conscious of what they're saying. They're just like saying things to you, and if you can interpret what they're saying like beneath what they're saying, you can come to, basically you'll figure out the secrets of the universe. And I've been just drowned now for like years. Not like years, but like, I guess it's been a year. I've been drowned in all this Christian content. And what it's basically saying is that there's a power beneath what we think there is. There's like I guess the best way I could say it is this, is at one time I came to the conclusion that the universe wanted to bang me. I know that's like a weird conclusion to come to, but the universe literally was telling me all these secrets and all these things that I wouldn't have come to the conclusion otherwise if it hadn't have told me. I was like in this place, right? I was stuck, and I was just a normal human, and then all of a sudden I heard the universe try to talk to me. And yeah, if you can figure out the language of the universe, right? If you can figure out this language that everybody around you is speaking, and to give you one last hint, I know I've said this like 3 times, but one last hint, they're talking in parables, right? They're speaking in parables about, and I guess I should explain what a parable is for those of you who don't understand. A parable is where you use one example of one thing, but it's talking about something completely different on the other side. Like Jesus would talk about fish, but he was literally talking about humans and how humans interact, right? It's like that. Sometimes people will unintentionally speak these parables, and they'll be trying to. It'll be like the Holy Spirit almost trying to talk to you about what you need. Almost like a subconscious computer, like this big brain that you're tapping into, and that's giving you knowledge, like this big brain of information. And you can literally hear it from anybody that you listen to. But if you're listening to people who are more spiritually in tuned, they'll have a better idea about how you should direct your life and how you should go forward. This lady I was listening to, she almost described it as like some people are like listening to the enemy, some people are listening to God. But what I see it as is this big old computer brain that's like up in the sky that knows like all of information, and it can literally download whatever it needs to download into your head. So I guess that's all I wanted to talk about. I'm retro. This ain't retro rips, but that's a reference probably none of you are gonna get, but peace.